It's the season of giving and doing good, right? Then let me be completely honest. I've tried pretty much every Better Health meal kit you can think of, and none have ever really worked for me. That is until I partnered with Factor. Don't bust your belt this bustling holiday season. Eat well for breakfast, lunch, and dinner with chef-prepared, ready-to-eat meals delivered straight to your door with Factor. They're dietitian-approved, meaning the diet doesn't have to take a break while Santa and those usually irresistible Christmas cookies roll into town. Factor is America's #1 ready-to-eat meal delivery service. Meal options include Calorie Smart, Vegan and Veggie, and Protein Plus. So give Factor a try today and enjoy eating well without the hassle. Ready in 2 minutes, no prep, no mess. The website is factormeals.com/TOC50, Talk of Champions 50, TOC50. And make sure to use code TOC50 to get 50% off your first order. That's code TOC50 at factormeals.com/TOC50 to get 50% off. Keep Christmas and dinner time merry with Factor, a proud sponsor of the Talk of Champions podcast network.
A new year has arrived. What's your resolution for 2024? How about making sure the roof over your head is well taken care of? Riverland Roofing is here for all your roofing needs. Whether it's an inspection, a new roof, or a maintenance program, Riverland Roofing has you covered, home or business, to give you peace of mind in the new year. As a GAF Master Elite contractor, they can offer warranties that last a lifetime. Riverland Roofing is licensed and insured to service Mississippi and its surrounding states. So give Riverland Roofing a call today and make sure you and yours are protected all year round. Call Riverland Roofing at 662-644-4297. That's 662-644-4297. Visit them online at riverlandroofing.com, riverlandroofing.com. It's Riverland Roofing for all of your roofing needs, a proud sponsor of the Talk of Champions podcast network. Welcome into the Flagship on this January 4th, 2024. 24, can you believe it? I'm Ben Garrett at Spirit Ben on Twitter. He's Zach Berry at Zach_Berry. We both write for the Ole Miss Spirit, omspirit.com, and affiliate of On3. And if you sign up today for just $1, you can get full coverage of Ole Miss's football, basketball, baseball programs, recruiting portal, you name it. It's all Ole Miss all the time, every single day. On the Ole Miss Spirit, omspirit.com, and affiliate of On3. And what a way to wake up this morning. I got to be honest with you, Zachary. So last night I get a call, and we learned at the Ole Miss Spirit that Quinshon Judkins, Ole Miss's star running back, was, quote, being cut loose. But let me be honest with you. In this business, you hear a lot of things a lot of times. And this isn't the first time, even though this is as well connected of an Ole Miss source on this stuff as you can get. And this wasn't the first time we've heard
we might could go toe to toe on that one, or it might be the same person.
It might be. This isn't the first, or last night wasn't the first time we have dealt with a similar situation or gotten a similar sentiment. So we were prepared. We had a story written for the possibility of Quinshon Judkins getting into the portal, which is exactly what he did this morning, according as first reported publicly by Matt Zenitz. But we'd heard this before. Once was when, from this person, when they signed Spencer Sanders and they signed Walker Howard, and then it was like, well, Jackson might be out the door. We don't, blah, 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 blah. A lot of things happen over the course of a year, especially with this portal and this money. And the renegotiations and renegotiations, then the second renegotiations after they decided they want more money, on and on and on. So we took it seriously last night, but we didn't run with it. And then it popped this morning. And I'm going to be honest with you, I'm kicking myself because I feel like we let our people down on the Ole Miss Spirit. And I said that to Chuck as we were talking about what we were going to do with it last night. But honestly, I think we sat on it. I think we sat on it more than anything, because if you're wrong, that would have looked in but it happened. Quinshon Judkins is in the portal, and
the old adage, Ben, it's better to be right than first.
Yeah, I guess so. But I don't like letting our people down. I don't give a shit who gets credit for it. I don't want our people to be blindsided. And it was funny because like On3 hit me up back in November as they were doing their preparations for the portal to come, and they're like, who are some players, even if it's just the most remote possibility to get into the portal? And the very first one I listed to our national desk was Quinshon. And the reason for that is because Quinshon has been a hard negotiator. He and his family, a hard negotiator for 3 years now. Ole Miss and Quinshon renegotiated before the bowl. They thought everything was done. What I heard last night was that Quinshon's is not the best teammate. I don't want to shit on the guy though. I think Ole Miss would love to have him back. But now that he's in the portal, and what I was told last night, and this is what really moves it forward. If you're wondering, oh my God, what does this mean? I was told last night by this person that said Ole Miss was cutting him loose that if he gets in the portal, it's over. So I say that to say, if you're asking me today, Ben, is Quinshon Judkins done as an Ole Miss Rebel? From everything I know right now as I record this podcast on January 4th, 2024 with Zach Berry, my fellow worker bee at the Ole Miss Spirit, is yeah, I think he's done. Because this has been a long time coming in a lot of ways. And I don't want to get on I don't want to rail anybody on any side here. It just didn't work out. That happens. He could come back, of course, but this development is going to be surprising to a lot of people. And it's our fault that it is, because we should have been talking about this as early as last night. So I own that. Now the next steps is what we're going to get into, what it means. Zach, when you saw the news this morning, when you started making your own, I didn't even tell Zach last night. Me and Choke were like, what are we going to do? Oh, should we keep it from Zach and Jake? No, we're just going to wait and let it breathe a little bit. Wrong call. This morning, he pops at 10 a.m. into the portal, according to Matt Zane. It's a 247, our old buddy from On 3. So this is a huge day. Now, I've got thoughts on this, more thoughts on this that I'll get to shortly, but I want yours. What was your first reaction, or what is your reaction right now from talking to some people since some time has passed since the news has run across the wire? Where are you as far as Quinshon entering the transfer portal?
Yeah, literally just happened right before we hit record. It's been trending in this direction for a while. I've heard some money numbers thrown out there that are ridiculous, and I don't know if there are many programs out there that could justify some of the numbers I've heard. Now, I don't know if they're true or not, but I have a good idea of where the number could be because of what his current deal is.
I don't want to interrupt you, but hey, let's get it all out there. What are the numbers you have heard? Because I can tell you what I think the number, I'm pretty positive from vetting with multiple sources, what the number is, but it's less about the money and the number, even though there is a debate and an argument and a conversation to be had in regards to valuation of running backs in football, period. In modern college football, how much money you should be allocating of your limited resources to running backs, period. But that's a philosophical discussion. As it pertains to Quinshon is established. He's set the single season Ole Miss rushing record as a freshman, as a sophomore, another 1,000-yard season. Ole Miss, you don't let a player like that walk without a good faith attempt to keep him. So Ole Miss has made time and again a good faith attempt to keep him. But again, without going too far into specifics, because I don't want anybody to think that we're shitting on Quinshon or shitting on the situation. This is just the new way of college football. This is how things are going to be. And there's a chance that a guy like Quinshon, the caliber and name recognition of Quinshon is going to get in. But I think it's less about the number that he wants, even though it's astronomical. So what are you hearing about the number? And more about, there has been a lot we've heard. I don't know. I don't want to call it sour grapes. I think there's some validity to it, but I also don't want to poo-poo on the guy if he's on his way out. But I have heard, it's worth noting, I think, that he hasn't been a great locker room guy, especially the last year. And in the Peach Bowl, for example, Jackson Dart had to call a timeout and go to the sidelines and beg Lane Kiffin to pull Quinshon because Quinshon was stirring some shit up in the huddle. There are things that have happened. He hasn't been the best teammate for the last year from what I've heard, and that's not just from adults in the room. We're talking about teammates as well. Having said that, all of them would prefer to have Quinshon than not, and I just think that the situation writ large became so untenable. I mean, that's how you get to this place. What number have you heard? What numbers were the astronomical crazy that you heard?
I've heard 7 figures. I've heard as big as 1.2.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You can't. I'm sorry.
Well, I first heard that he'd already.
He's a great running back. The guy first player in the SEC since Herschel Walker with 15 plus touchdowns in each of his first 2 seasons. I mean, that's insane company.
Insane.
But and again, this is pure financial, situation talking here. This isn't sour grape. Look, like we cover Ole Miss. We went to Ole Miss. We cheer for Ole Miss for business reasons and personal reasons. So this is not sour grapes. You can't pay a guy 1.2 million. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And if
Well,
we're going to look at it, and let's
positionally.
look at it exactly. Let's look at it this way, Ben. We talked about this before, where the trend of running backs in the NFL, they normally don't get drafted in the first round. I mean, recently it's happened with Bijan Robinson and some others, but normally those guys are, late first, second round. How does that translate into college? I think the same thing goes here where, yeah, running backs are important. You need a good running back. You need a running game to be balanced. It's hard to be a one-dimensional offense in 2024, especially in the SEC. But if you look at the track record of Lane Kiffin, he's figured it out with the run game no matter who he's had. Ole Miss led the league in rushing with Snoop Connor, Jerry Neely, and Henry Parrish. I think if you're an Ole Miss fan, you should have full confidence in Lane Kiffin and the rest of the staff figuring it out. And look, they're still trying to get Ulysses Bentley to stay. He's got the COVID year. Chuck posted an update last night that there are negotiations working there with him. They've got Kedrick Riscano, 4-star guy out of Texas that the staff loves. They're high on him. They could go get somebody out of the portal still. There's still some guys left in the portal that have not found a home yet. There's still some guys that have committed to schools, but
And there are guys that haven't gotten in yet that we're waiting
true.
to see some dominoes fall. This is the biggest domino as it gets. I think one name that makes a lot of sense to me is Jarquez Hunter at Auburn. I'd heard that there were some overtures extended from his camp. I hate saying camp, but it is what it is. His camp to Ole Miss, for example, because there is the portal, the tampering portal. And it's not just schools reaching out to players, it's players reaching out to schools as well. Maybe there's an old recruiting connection, whatever it might be. But when you're looking at the situation with Quinshon here, it starts with money. It does. But Ole Miss knew the money was going to be what it is. Like Ole Miss knew that
it
the number
starts and ends with money.
Well, I don't think it ends with money. I think Ole Miss certainly made concessions as far as what they were wanting to go, where they were wanting to go number wise with Quinshon to keep him, despite some real behavioral. He's a good enough kid, but in this age of recruiting in college football, players have more control over what they perceive to be their worth than ever before, and regardless of whether or not you or those who have their hands on the levers of power in college football agree with their evaluation of their worth, they can pursue that self-evaluation and have the opportunity to go and see what their market is. I'm fascinated to see what his market is going to be because I know that the number has been astronomical. I'd heard that he cleared $1 million a long time ago and that they renegotiated for 1.25 and that they're wanting 1.7. And again, these are huge numbers. And two, you have to ask yourself organizationally, are we being responsible with the allocation of our limited resources by paying a running back who, in my opinion, and this is just philosophically in regards to football in 2023, man, running backs are a dime a dozen. And yes, he's a historic running back. He set a single season Ole Miss record last year. This year, I should say, because it's not quite last year yet to me. This year, Quinshon rushed for 1,000 behind an offensive line that was lesser. And 700 or more of his yards came after contact. He did incredible work this year too. But considering the cost and considering the behavioral stuff that they had some questions about, that there was a disagreement about maybe from both sides where that was, the behavioral aspect of it. This isn't a surprising outcome. It's an outcome that we've hinted at on this podcast for a couple of years. I mean, this was the same situation Ole Miss dealt with last offseason with Quinshon. He almost got into the portal. Well, now it's officially happened. And again, if you're asking me what it means moving forward, I'd say he's done. So what comes next then? And the first step is Ulysses Bentley retaining him for next year. Now, he's got an invitation and has accepted that invitation to the East-West Shrine game. However, just because he's accepted that invitation doesn't mean that his college career is over. Ole Miss is renegotiating or negotiating with him right now on a deal that would bring him back and potentially put him with Kedrick Riscano and who they might add then in the portal. Here's the thing about Ulysses Bentley. I mean, I think a conversation we had on this podcast, me and Brad, me and you, somebody all year was, man, why did you pay $200,000? Why are you paying $1.2 million for a running back? Ulysses Bentley can do this. You got these problems here, here, and here. So once it got to a place with Quinshon where it was untenable or whatever it might have been, the breaking point, if you will, then it regresses back to traditional decision-making things. And for Ole Miss, that's why are you paying 1 point whatever million for a running back who is just going to come back in March and be like, all right, need a little bit more now, and then have the problems in the huddle and maybe in practice and just not ingratiating himself in certain situations. But I do not want anybody to think that we're railing on Quinshon. We're not. This is just part of the decision-making process now in college football. And in the old days, if Deuce McAllister would have gotten into a transfer portal, it'd have been the end of all things. Ole Miss, with or without Quinshon Judkins, is the same program going into next season because running backs are devalued in general. And I think Ole Miss, I mean, what we talked about this year was, man, Ole Miss could have been just as fine with Ulysses Bentley and Kedrick Riscano. They needed some offensive linemen, take the money, blah, 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 blah. Well, now you're going to get that opportunity, it looks like, and it's still, I guess it is surprising just because we've heard it for 2.5 years. Auburn was tampering with them. Auburn tampered with them all season, right? I mean, we thought that him being an Auburn guy, he's probably going back to Auburn for all we know. He could be going to hang out with Freeze. Best of luck, do what you feel is in the best interest of you. Having said that, I mean, it's surprising, but also it's not. I think what's surprising is just, it really happened, not the rumblings. The rumblings had been there, I think.
The car buying process can be a lot. I know, I've been there. You just want to get in and out with a new car and the best deal. Simple. Allen Samuels Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram of Oxford keeps it simple. They're going to take care of you, get you in and out with your new vehicle with a great deal. Their inventory right now is priced to sell, and what separates Allen Samuels Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram of Oxford from any and all competitors is they aim to address each of your needs with the utmost respect, care, and attention to detail. Contact them today at 662-234-8000. That's 662-234-8000. Stop by and see them in person at 2201 East University Avenue in Oxford. That's Allen Samuels Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram of Oxford to find your next perfect car, truck, or Jeep. Allen Samuels, let's be friends.
Introducing the new and improved BNA Bank mobile app. From setting transaction alerts and tracking your spending habits to managing travel plans and turning off a lost or stolen debit card, you can take care of all of it in the new BNA mobile app. At BNA Bank, we know that life moves pretty fast, and we have the mobile technology to keep up with your life on the go. BNA Bank. Local, invested, modern banking.
The number you're hearing, 1.75, nah, dude. Best of luck. Have fun. You're not justifying that, especially when there are other needs. I think offensive line is the big one. You got to shore up that position, get a couple more dudes in there. And look, again, like I said, Kiffin's done numbers with other guys. He's led the league in rushing before without a guy like Quinshon Judkins. Yeah, I have full confidence in them figuring it out. I have full confidence in the staff finding a way, whether it be go getting another guy out of the portal. I think that immediately Ole Miss fans are going to jump to, well, there goes the potential for a playoff run, or I don't think, no. Like, this team is going to be preseason top 10 at the worst, with or without Quinshon Judkins. I think the additions on defense are much bigger than the additions on offense, which is saying a lot because you're getting Deion Smith, you're getting Juice Wells, Caden Priestcorn is back, not to mention Trey Harris and Jordan Watkins. So the offense is going to be purring regardless. You've got your third-year starter at quarterback in Jackson Dart, who had the second best Pro Football Focus score out of anyone not named Michael Penix Jr., which if you watched the Sugar Bowl, there were probably a lot of people that were like, damn, we put the wrong vote in for the Heisman. So I don't think that topic should even be broached at this point. And again, this isn't sour grapes. This is looking at what this team is heading into next season. Sure, having a third-year guy like Quinshon Judkins, yeah, that was going to be great. That's awesome.
Ole Miss wanted him back. Unfortunately, it got to this place, and he's in the portal. The point, I think two things can be true. One, it's a loss because Quinshon's one of your most recognizable players, period. Having said that, of all the most recognizable players, who are the most recognizable players on Ole Miss's roster right now? Jackson Dart, Trey Harris, Caden Priestcorn. On the defensive side, J.J. Pegues, Jared Ivey. Pick a name. Whoever you think is invaluable. And even if Quinshon with his production thrown into that conversation, you're still picking those other players because positionally, it just doesn't make a lot of sense. It made sense for Ole Miss because of who he was. What he did as a freshman was record-breaking. He made his name here. Ole Miss found him. But there have been issues. And now those issues, and from both ends of it, from Ole Miss's end of it, from Quinshon's end of it, his, I think, was completely compensation related. I do agree as far as the money. It was completely about the compensation for Quinshon. For Ole Miss, I don't think necessarily they had as much of an issue with the compensation. They regularly renegotiated in good faith and pushed it out to a bigger number or gave him what he wanted, got close. But it starts to become a harder evaluation when you have all the other stuff, right? When you make yourself – so it's not just Quinshon made the move, oh, no, what happens? Ole Miss made the move too. Ole Miss and Quinshon, it just looks like it's over. And because, again, I was told last night, should have reported it. I'm a coward. Chuck, me, should have told Zach, let Zach, well, I don't know, should have done something. Because I feel guilty that Ole Miss fans might be feeling a little surprised today. And it's a hard one. It's a hard one because Quinshon is who he is. His name is what it is. But as far as positionally and what he plays, running back, I'm sorry. And this does sound, I don't know. It shouldn't sound like anything. Running back is just probably the last position on a roster outside of punter and kicker that I'm worried about, especially for a national title contender in 2024, even with Quinshon. Because you got everything else. If you told me that Ole Miss had to sacrifice Quinshon to get its current defensive line haul, including the portal and high school ranks, I make the trade 10 times out of 10. Ideally, you never have to make the trade, but this was unfortunately a possibility going on his last year, wrapping up the single season Ole Miss record and Auburn pre-portaling and other programs. I mean, they weren't the only ones. And now Quinshon gets to see his true worth one way or the other. And
yeah,
I don't know if there is the possibility for reconciliation here. I would say no. And if that's the case, it's a dang shame. This is the first time Ole Miss has really been hit, I think, with the new culture of college football. Yeah, Ole Miss has been the portal king and this, that, and the other, but this was going to happen at some point. I mean, this was going to happen. The timing, not great, but also kind of perfect. It's a good thing they got done what they got done, did all that legwork before Christmas, Like, what do they have to do outside of linemen and a running back, right? I mean, I wrote all about their lineman possibilities yesterday. The offensive lineman from Florida, Percy Lewis, is visiting Ole Miss on Friday. The LSU offensive lineman, Lance Hurd, Ole Miss has already been in contact with him, wants him as well. Well, now you can start considering running backs, and we'll be rolling that out, the Ole Miss Spirit, OleMissSpirit.com, and affiliated on 3. Other recruiting things then, now that this news has happened, just kind of where are things, Mr. Recruiting, Ole Miss recruiting expert, where are things right now as far as the roster, what they might be targeting in January, how this changes things on and on. Your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, it's first looking at the offensive line. I think Zalen's Hurd, Perry Lewis are the two big names right now. And I talked with Pete Nakos of On 3 earlier, Seth McLaughlin from Alabama. He's taking a visit to Ohio State this week. It's not 100% done yet, but it is being reported that potentially could visit Ole Miss this weekend as well. Ole Miss is also hosting Cole Rusk, the tight end from Murray State, this weekend. I confirmed with him he will wrap up his Illinois visit and head to Oxford tomorrow, which I think is it's going to be either or. I think that's his final two at this point, either Illinois or Ole Miss. And then, probably looking at some secondary pieces in terms of the defensive backs, not, secondary as opposed to primary. But, yeah, you're going to have to replace Dejon Anthony, Deshaun Gaddy. Still haven't seen anything from John Saunders. I know he said at all the media opportunities at the Peach Bowl that he hadn't made a decision yet, but he hasn't come forth and said anything. I know that there's a loophole with 5 days after the bowl game for guys to get in the portal. I believe that day would be today. So, yeah, could pick up another corner or two. I know that Kiffin was tweeting this morning, hinting at another possible commitment with Pete Golding having some fun on Twitter. You would think that would mean a defensive guy, but it could also mean, since it's coming from Kiffin, it could be an offensive guy.
And with Pete, I mean, you don't limit Pete to just defense only. I will say this.
Well, no, but if he's doing the shark emoji, it's for defensive guys.
That's true. Absolutely. Yeah. Well said. Lane and Pete are currently fishing in tropical paradise right now. And I heard that when all this Quinshon stuff was popping this week, or like they were going through the process, eventually Lane and them had to make a call. What do you want to do? And I think it became for them, the coaches too, and that's why I'm sharing this today. It's just time maybe for both sides to go their separate ways. Maybe there is reconciliation in the future. Maybe Ole Miss figures out a way. Maybe all cooler heads prevail and this, that, and the other. I don't know what there was to be heated about. Ole Miss just made history with 11 wins in a season for the first time ever. But
I'll say this:
personal considerations.
Our fearless leader Shannon Terry tweeted a couple minutes ago, Judkins has an On3 NIL valuation of $535,000. He says, quote, "I suspect he's asking for 2 or 3 times his value. Even in this climate, hard to see a running back commend $1 million deal. Decisions for all involved." So
there you go. Shannon's speaking it better than me.
Yeah. Captain Algorithm has spoken.
Thank you, Captain Algorithm. I love that. Captain Algorithm, Shannon Terry. Yeah.
Shout out to Shannon. I mean, that's a great way of looking at it.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, the valuation is the valuation. You can read about how On3 comes up with the valuations on the website. I'm not going to even pretend to get into the minutia of that because it's very convoluted, and they have the people that have put it together are far smarter than I am. But yeah, I mean, I think that, going back to the NFL thing, like, you don't see a lot of NFL running backs get, these types of deals. Now it's different in the NFL, it's more money, but, in terms of comparing the two,
talking about Ole Miss or the Dallas Cowboys paying Zeke $3 million, they let him walk to the Patriots. I mean, we're talking about $1.75 million is the ask. Not to mention you got behavioral problems. Like, no, let it, and it's okay for people to break up. I feel like I'm talking to children after the parents just got divorced. Like sometimes people are better apart than they are together. But Quinshon and Ole Miss together made pretty sweet music. But you put up with a lot on both ends, not just Ole Miss. I'm gonna say Q2 because I don't know I don't want to just take Ole Miss's side. Ole Miss might have done something but everything I've heard is there comes a point with everybody. Like no player is bigger or no player is, or maybe it's just not worth for where you are to go to a certain number. And that's okay. It doesn't have to be personal. It could just be business. If it's just business, then Ole Miss made what I think was the correct business call in this scenario. If it was more than
Yeah.
that, we'll deal with that another day down the line. Quinshon
Again-
Judkins is no longer an Ole Miss Rebel when he was an Ole Miss Rebel yesterday. And that is a shocking and culturally defining thing for Ole Miss football in 2023 because the culture has changed, right? Who you latch on to. Jackson Dart will be a third-year starter, so he's going to go down as that Rebel that you put right there with Chad Kelly and Archie and Eli and Bo and Matt Corral. But Quinshon, I mean, this is a record setter as a freshman, a record setter. And 2 years later, he's not a part of your program, not because something nefarious happened, because y'all both mutually made a choice. And that is crazy to think of. But it is what it is. And I completely understand the logic of saying, you know what? This has been a chore for about a year and a half. It's just something. It's never done. I mean, they renegotiated before the bowl. They thought it was over. And then it's, nope, back to the table again. Because these NIL deals, there's nothing locking you into them. He's Zach Berry at Zach_Berry. If you haven't already subscribed, review Talk of Champions, our podcast network in iTunes. Just simply search Talk of Champions. And when you do, leave a 5-star review brought to you by College Corner, brought to you by Home Field Apparel, B&A Bank, Allen Samuels Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram of Oxford, also the Ole Miss Athletics Foundation. We got a lot going on, man. Enjoyed it. We'll be back, I guess, tomorrow. We'll figure it out. See you, buddy.
See you, buddy.